And
This meeting is being recorded.
all right, so I can get a roll call. No need to call that out.
Ready. Next up, we have public invited to be heard. Do any of our guests have anything they want to say, or do we want to talk? Do we want to add that to the unfinished business?
I can speak really
Okay.
quickly. So my name is Catherine, and I've lived in Longmont for over 10 years. Came up here through Boulder after the flood, and I love it here. I have been involved in the art business, the art world, as a very small child. My grandfather is the American regionalist painter John Rogers Cox, and he was the first director of Swope Art Museum in Indiana, which is, she had mentioned Hopper. My grandfather was a contemporary of Hopper, of Grant Wood. And through that relationship with the museum, he and my grandmother purchased the founding collection. So my family's been really involved over generations with this particular museum in Indiana. And formally, I'm an event planner. I specialize in meetings, retreats, team building, and executive entertainment. But when COVID hit, I started painting. So I now paint on commission only, and I paint in watercolor and gouache, and I do reproduction work, and I do custom abstract work, which is really my passion. So I'm very involved personally in art, and I'd like to expand my horizons a little bit since I'm not doing events anymore. COVID kind of crushed that, and I wasn't willing to get into virtual for some of my activities for groups. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Terrific. Wow.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Catherine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Catherine.
I'm Linda Buxbaum. Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I grew up in New York. I went to music and art high school for art, later went into social work. I was going to be an art teacher. I actually did student teaching at Art and Design High School in New York, but was always working in the social work field. Had volunteered at the Guild for the Jewish Blind and at 16 and started working there. And when I graduated college, I started working at the Home for the Aged Blind, and my supervisor encouraged me to go for a master's, which I did. And I got a master's in social work and worked in the field for a very, very long time until I left it in 2010. I had been working on a child study team, and we were classifying kids for special education. So, and then I worked a little bit after that, working back with seniors in nursing homes until I moved out here. I've always been involved in art. I've always loved art. I do photography. I love art history. When I came out here, I started taking courses at CU. And I went through all the art history courses they gave, and I went through all the photography courses that I could go through with the history, and love it. So I really am interested in being a part of the Longmont Museum and do whatever I can do. I have a lot of time on my hands. Hi, Tom.
Hey.
That's great.
That's
Linda, Catherine, thank you both for joining us and considering the board. Do you have any questions about the board?
I don't. I mean, I was really thankful to receive this packet because it really gives you a good idea of what goes on. You know, for example, last month's minutes and kind of what's going on, the director's report, and what these accessions look like coming through.
Yeah. Cool. Linda, did you have any questions or anything you wanted
No, but
to?
I'd love to receive that packet. I just put my application in, so hopefully I'll get something later on. I can maybe swing by and pick up something from the museum.
Okay, great. We can also forward you the museum meeting packet for today too.
You bet.
Okay,
You
that'd
bet,
be
Linda.
great.
I will certainly forward that, Linda.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, thanks, y'all. Next up, we have approval of the minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review the minutes in our packet. Any questions or concerns you want to talk about with those? If not, then can I hear a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes.
A second.
Thanks, Tom and Dale. All in favor? And fantastic. That is unanimous. Next up, we're moving to accessions. So, Eric?
All right, great. Well, for those of you who are guests, I'm going to share my screen for everyone. And one of the main things that the advisory board does each month is review proposed accessions to the Longmont Museum's collection. We've been collecting now over 80 years and primarily focused on history, although we do collect some art as well. So I go through and just present what is proposed. Board asks any questions about any of the things that are proposed, and then we vote whether to accept them. So can everyone see the April 2022 slide? So first up is part of our ongoing effort to collect more related to the LGBTQ community. This is a collection of photographs from the first day of civil unions, legal civil unions, the Boulder County Courthouse. We're still working on getting identification on all of these folks, but hopefully we'll be able to have that in the next few weeks. So again, kind of a selection. We were given a CD of a whole lot of images and selected a handful. And we felt like we're the best to include the museum's collection. Next up, this comes out of our Longmont 150 exhibit. In that exhibit, we had a piece of technology by a company that at that time was called Rocor. It was a Longmont-based company. And at the end of the exhibit, we approached them and said, we'd love to have something made in Longmont that actually, is designed to go into space. And the object that they had loaned us, they said, well, we do need that one back. But we were able to acquire this engineering model of a solar array that the company, which is now called Redwire Space, built that will be launched as part of a local satellites, actually a company out of Golden that is building a number of small weather satellites.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of local connections with this one. Then we have two historic books. We don't too often collect rare books, but these two had particularly strong local connections. One is a volume of History of State of Colorado that was stamped June 4, 1913, the Longmont Library. The library opened in the Carnegie Library building in 1912. So it would mean this book has been in the library for over 100 years. So it seemed appropriate to accession at the library was disposing of it, and I asked if we were interested. And then the other item is a local author, Julia Criswell, author and illustrator. This is one of her books, Winds and Waters, again, coming from the Longmont Library. Then we have something that was mailed to us, no return address, no identification as to its previous owner. Kind of a curious little scrapbook. It's entirely advertisements for a local band called Nolan Fry's Rainbow Orchestra. Interestingly enough, Nolan Fry donated a very large stone tool collection to the museum. So we've definitely got a pretty strong connection with Nolan Fry. And he also was a Longmont band leader. We've got a photograph of him in that. So it seemed like something we should have in case anyone's ever curious about local music in Longmont. And last is a photograph we were offered of an event that we actually hosted. This is Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, held in downtown Longmont in 2021. And local photographer had taken this photograph kind of as a test for an unusual type of printing and framing technique, and ultimately decided to donate it to the museum. So we felt like, since it was a local event and one we were sponsoring, that it made sense to consider it. I will stop sharing. Any questions on those accessions? Yeah, Dale.
I just wonder, on the History of Colorado book, volume 4, does the museum own any of the other volumes of that history?
We don't. We collected it not so much about that particular 4-volume book. There's others that have kind of superseded it in scholarship, but more as kind of an artifact of library history.
Right. Okay. I just wondered. Whoops.
Any other questions or comments on the accessions? If not, do we have a motion to approve them?
I move to approve.
Thanks, Katie. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ria. All in favor? Please raise your hand. That looks like all of us. Great, thank you. That is unanimous. Next, we'll move on to a report of the museum chair, our director.
You could go if you want to, Brian.
I don't really have anything to say.
My name is Kim Manajay. I'm the director at the museum, and I just wanted to say hi to Linda and Catherine, and thank you for joining us. I also wanted to maybe follow up a little bit on Eric's presentation and kind of the board in general. We've recently gone through a process where we worked with a consultant to outline an interpretive plan, and the interpretive plan relates to basically everything that the museum does. And our consultant helped guide us through kind of like how we can rethink what we already do and make it kind of make sense for all of us, kind of in a package, a comprehensive package. And so recently, the board approved the interpretive plan, and Eric is now working on how to integrate that interpretive plan into our collections policy. And so there are really 2 themes that were part of that interpretive plan. And I'm happy to share the bigger document with you because I think it's a pretty impressive document, if I do say so myself. But basically the themes that we drew out of kind of what we do as a matter of course is Longmont Proud and Bring the Beyond. And so while the majority of the collections that we currently own as the Longmont Museum, held in trust, collections for the city of Longmont, they're mostly historical objects that have some kind of relationship to the history of Longmont. So I've been at the museum now for 5 years, and I think within those 5 years, we've been offered art kind of left and right. And so we've had to kind of deal with, how do we think about these things? And so Eric is working on how do we incorporate the bring the beyond piece of that into our collections policy. And essentially, I won't go into all the details, but essentially what we've said to each other is that it's relevant in order to be able to say, that we are more than just the history of Longmont, that essentially we are, as the museum, we are bringing the history of Longmont to the world, and conversely, we are bringing the history of the world to Longmont. And we feel that we do that pretty well. And so what we've decided in terms of the collections policy is that we will consider those things that are presented to us as donations if it meets this kind of high bar of being really an outstanding example of bring the beyond. So I just throw that out there in terms of what our collections policy looks like, because currently we really do have a focus on just Longmont history, but recently we've been receiving a lot of art. We've consulted with some art experts so that we have some guidance on what to do with some of those things that are a little outside of our expertise. But we did have a donation 2 years ago, if I'm correct, COVID messes with my brain, of Longmont artists, and it's a really high quality donation and collection. And I think that we're seeing that more and more. So we needed to try to understand how we do that more thoughtfully. And so I think that we're all feeling really comfortable with how we are proposing it in that collections policy. And at some point, we'll have you guys put your stamp of approval on that collections policy too. We've got a little bit more work before we get to that approval moment, but I think that look forward to that coming. There was something else I was thinking about, just giving background about collections. Maybe I'll think of it later after I go through my report. But if you've got any questions, just more generally about how we collect. Oh, that's what it was, is that we don't have an acquisitions budget. And so almost exclusively the way that we add to our collection is through donations. And so there are some exceptions to that, but generally speaking, that's how the collection grows. And so, even in your everyday, sort of life in Longmont, if you come across things that people are like, what do I do with my grandmother's blah, 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 certainly think about the museum, because I do think that that is really the biggest mechanism by which that collection grows. So I throw that out there as well. So again, if you have any other questions, let us know. All right, and now on to the director's report. There are some exciting things going on in our exhibitions department, but I'm just going to go through the list, and then again, please shout out throughout this report if you've got any questions for me. You all may recall that we got about $500,000 in relief funds from different COVID grants, and so with that money, or as a result of that money, we've been able to buy a box truck, which I'm not sure we ever really thought we would be able to do, but this is going to allow us to transport collections more efficiently, more agilely, and is that a word, agilely? And then also just be able to know that we are doing sort of clean transportation with art. And so we'll be using, we may not get the van because of the problems that we're having with the supply chain. We may not get it for quite some time, but we've got it on order. We know that it's coming. at some point. So we're all feeling really good about that. So look forward to a new box truck at the museum within the next couple of years, I'll say. We're also working on our 2023 budget. So I'll have more information for all of you about that probably at the next advisory board meeting. In the exhibitions department, our washi exhibition closes on May the 15th. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, please come and check it out. It is extraordinary, and we've gotten a lot of attention around this exhibition. So please tell your friends about it. We also have a closing event that's going to be happening on May the 6th. We opened the show when COVID cases were on the rise. So we made the decision not to have an opening reception for this, which is what we typically do. But we are instead having a closing event. So that's going to be May the 6th from 6 to 8. And I hope to see all of you there. The night's going to include a special conversation on washi and Japanese handcrafts with a craft design specialist named Claire Cuccio. Who's going to be in conversation with our curator of exhibitions, Jared Thompson. And the opening, that's going to be happening at 5 o'clock. And then we've got a lot of work that's happening in our Teepee to Tiny House exhibition. You see a photograph there. Our exhibitions department is actually building a shepherd's wagon as part of this exhibition. They've already built a tiny house as part of this exhibition. And so there's been a lot of building going on. The team went down to the March powwow in Denver and purchased a lot of the objects that we're gonna put inside of the teepee. We have a new person working with us, Stephen LaPointe, who is a consultant from the Native American community, who's gonna be doing some summer camps with us. And he's also been a consultant on how we sort of handle the Native American context of this exhibition. So he's been really, really informative and helpful. And so he helped help us purchase some objects at the powwow for the teepee that's going to be in the exhibition. And also helped us, properly set up the teepee. So now we've got real expertise and guidance on that. So that's been really helpful. We had a day of prototyping in Kaiser C with more than 15 kids. And that was just such a fun day to see. We set up a bunch of the different interactives that we're going to have in the exhibition in Kaiser C, and then just watch them play. So we learned a ton about how they interact and what they're attracted to. And we don't normally have the luxury of doing that kind of prototyping. So it was really wonderful because, as you recall, this exhibition was actually planned pre-pandemic, and we were going to open it the summer that the pandemic happened. And we were like, nope, that's not smart. A hands-on, interactive, family-friendly exhibition is not the thing that we should be doing right now. So we shelved it. But it gave us the opportunity to be able to prototype some of the ideas that we had. So that was a nice luxury to have. Brack in our exhibition department is also working on this wind tunnel interactive that's going to be part of the exhibition. And we are on the heels of the closing of washi, which again, I've said was extremely popular and has been really well received. And I think especially from the Japanese community, we've received a lot of great feedback. So that is always, it feels good to us to feel like we were hitting the right notes for folks. In our auditorium department, March is always a big month for us in the auditorium with the Boulder International Film Festival. And unfortunately, the thing that happened this year, and we don't exactly understand why, but for 2022, the attendance for BIF was actually down by about 50%, and compared to our 2020 numbers. And so that was a bit of a disappointment, but we still feel like we are doing pretty well in terms of our overall attendance for auditorium programs. So we're moving forward, and next year is going to be even better, I have no doubt. A lot of this has to do with the numbers at the moment in time of COVID cases. And so I think that that's really what happened, that what we're seeing with BIF. We also have concerts with local musician Antonio Lopez, the CU Boulder Altitude Directive, and the premiere of our Songwriters Showcase, which we're thinking now is going to end up being an annual event that features some up and coming talent. Did somebody have a question? No, okay. With Bonnie and Taylor Sims. They've been friends of the museum for a long time. And so it's nice to have them sort of curate this up and coming singer-songwriter event. And I do think we're going to end up doing that on a regular basis. In CAR, we've established a relationship with them annually to do some climate change talks with their scientists, and those have been very successful. So we're going to continue that relationship. We've got the Longmonster, Dr. James L. Dunn, the Deputy Director of NCAR's Capacity Center for Climate and Weather Extremes. And we finished out the month with CU's Playback Theater Ensemble, who offered some interactive storytelling featuring the audience's experience with change and gentrification in Boulder County. So those were some successful programs. I think I mentioned this last time that last fall, we saw our biggest ticket sales of all falls that we've had. And then this spring, or this winter spring, we're seeing the same thing happen, that we are breaking records over the history of the museum. And so it's, it feels like people are starting to really come out at the end of the pandemic, and we're definitely seeing those numbers rise. So it's nice to see some records broken. And then you see some of the details of the March numbers and April programs and April rentals. We're also seeing really an uptick in terms of rental inquiries and bookings. So that's a good thing overall as well. In our education department, in order to serve more families more comfortably, we've moved the Discovery Days program into our classroom AB. So for those who are familiar with the building of the museum, the classroom that's at the very end of the hallway is where we typically hold our Discovery Days event. But because of feeling kind of packed into that space, we've moved into AB classrooms. That just gives everybody a little bit more space, that they can feel more comfortable. And people are commenting about it, that they feel a lot more comfortable there. So that's been a success. And basically what has happened, I don't know if it's because of this, but we're definitely seeing the demand that we are at a point that we're having to turn people away from Discovery Days because they're so popular. Also kind of a good place to be. We continue to hear positive feedback about the new classroom location with kids and adults after making that move. So this is a good thing, I think, for all of the folks that actually participate in that. We've awarded almost $20,000 in summer camp scholarships to 87 campers. And I think that since this report was compiled, I think these numbers are even higher. We are, I think, more like 95% full in our summer camps, with most of the camps full and a lot of them having a wait list. So we're seeing a lot of demand in terms of summer camps as well. The gross totals per the writing of this report on the 5th of April was at 113,000. So we're higher than that now. We do still need teen volunteers for summer camps. So I don't know if any of you have teens in your lives that you can point our way. We've got the link to the website there that folks can sign up. So if you have teens in your life that might be interested in helping us with basically the administration of summer camp, please send them our way. We need more. And they tend to be really fantastic, responsible folks that help with the summer camps. So that's always a great sort of win-win for their portfolio. In our collections department, we've got a couple of people that we're bringing on board. Rebecca's already started with us, Rebecca Gates, and then Elizabeth Kreibel. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, if that's not how she pronounces her name. She's going to be starting with us May the 16th. And this is in order for us to pack up all of the things in textile storage so that we can move those out to the Museum Collection Center. I think that Eric is hoping that will be concluded by about October. And so it's nice to have some dedicated assistants to be able to make that move. Eileen, who's our registrar in Eric's department, continues to work closely developing next year's collaborative exhibition with the Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art. We've got farmers and artists that we're working with for that exhibition. And so she's responsible for writing all of those contracts. So good thing she is just a whip when it comes to attention to detail. Those tend to be sort of crazy contracts. So Eric has been developing a new presentation that will be available to the community groups starting in mid-April, titled The Great Western Sugar, People of the Fields and Factories. Have you done any of those presentations yet, Eric?
I did my first one last week.
Wonderful.
So
Bruce, how'd it go?
it went well. I was at Fraser Meadows Manor in Boulder, beautiful facility, and sold 5 books as well. So that's
Hey, good job. Well, I'm sure that people are really curious about this history.
yeah. I mean, it's a pretty abusive corporation, but it also brought a lot of the diversity that Longmont and Northern Colorado has in through the field workers and people who worked in the factories as well.
Yeah. Bruce, did you have a comment?
Oh, I was making an inappropriate comment about Eric.
Maybe I stopped you just in time.
Well, that's a fact. I just want to say that's a fascinating history, the Great Western Sugar Company. And even wanted it all the way until it imploded. It's a fascinating history.
Yeah, I agree.
And how it devastated a lot of rural communities throughout the West.
Yeah.
Talk about that at all, Eric? The aftershocks of the implosion of the Great Western Sugar Company. They used to have a massive warehouse in Denver where they had all their archives, and they destroyed everything on the advice of the lawyers.
Wow.
So that's kind of tragic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Wow.
it's quite a fascinating history. And I talk a little bit about the implosion, but I focus more on kind of the earlier period and the field worker.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it shaped Longmont. It shaped so many cities in Colorado, right? Yeah. It is fascinating history. Moving on, unless there are
I'm
other.
going to make one point.
Sure.
You talk about 30 years ago, 25 years ago, they wanted to turn the Great Western, the sugar plant, they wanted to turn that into a waste facility. Waste management wanted to turn the eastern end entry into Longmont into a trash processing facility. I don't know if you know that, but
I did not know that.
I did not know that either.
yeah, it was not well received.
I'm sure we're all glad that didn't happen 30 years ago.
Yeah,
That would be a bad introduction to Longmont.
that's right.
Okay, thank you, Bruce, for shedding some historical information on us. That's interesting. All right, so moving on, unless we have any other comments about that. Okay. Art in public places, we do have some things that are happening. Gather Enough People Here, which is the title of a sculpture, is relocating as a result of some work that's happening along the waterway. And so there is some efforts going on to try to figure out exactly where that's going to end up going. So Parks and Engineering is helping to help us figure out how we relocate that piece. So that's kind of an ongoing project. Staff went to, the whole staff, so this includes Art and Public Places, but also the Longmont Museum staff, went to a retreat to Meow Wolf, and really Angela in Art and Public Places was trying to pay special attention to the interactive installations that were presented in the space. There's a lot of digital imaging and things happening sort of up in the ceiling and behind doors and things like that. So it may come across as the, staff just took a fun field trip, but really it was work related. We were trying to understand better kind of what they do. And it was an interesting conversation sort of after the fact that we all had, which was Meow Wolf isn't a museum. There are really no interpretive elements. It's a bunch about spectacle and a bunch about interaction and, physicality and that sort of thing. But there's very little in terms of real interpretation. And so just across the board, we all said to one another, like, that's not a museum, that's entertainment, that's something different. And it was kind of interesting to think about it as a group and to think about it as museum professionals. So we got a lot out of it, both in terms of the technology that they use, but also in terms of the museum field in general. And then Eve Lacey, who a lot of you know is our former chair of the advisory board. She is a volunteer at the museum, sort of ongoing for a long time, and she's been helping staff in AIPP organize the digital files and the collections files in our database. So she's always an attribute for the museum and Art and Public Places. In visitor services, we made about a little over $6,000 in March. We've been doing really well in our gift shop in the last year or two, even during the pandemic. We were just talking about that today in a meeting, that Eric's book actually saved the shop during the pandemic. We made a decent amount of money because of Eric's book, even when our doors were closed. So we've been doing well in the gift shop. We're feeling the supply chain issues, though. We got some orders that have been outstanding and back ordered, and some ship dates that have just been canceled. So we are feeling some of the impact from that. About 150 memberships were purchased or renewed in the month of March. And I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but we are close, if not at our all-time high for memberships. And so the previous record was hit during our Ansel Adams exhibition. And so we're right about the same that we were at with Ansel Adams. And so we're feeling good about memberships at the moment. And I think Washi is definitely the reason that has happened. We also have a new water bottle filler in the drinking fountain that's by the auditorium. And we are going to be installing a water bottle filler next to the water fountain that's right there, kind of at the crossroads at the museum, right when you walk in to go to the galleries or go to the classrooms. And so this will be a feature that I think people will really take advantage of. You see these more and more, and most of them have kind of this auto function that you just put your bottle right up next to. Because of the configuration of our existing water fountains, we weren't able to do that. So ours is one that kind of just goes with the look and feel that we already had, but you do have to push a button in order to be able to get your water out. But I think that we're really going to see that as an added amenity at the museum. Some of the things you might not think about. In our development department, we're working on the process of getting new donor management software. So this also goes back to part of what Eric has been dealing with lately, that we've the database that he uses for collections management is sort of coming to the end of its lifetime. And so we're having to find new database for the collections. And as a result of that, we are looking at new database for our donor management as well. And so we're having to deal with that sort of concurrently. So we've got ETS looking into it and making sure that we get approval across the city and with our purchasing department. We've applied for an Alchemy Fund grant for helping to fund Discovery Days. And then Smuckers, who is a relatively new business in town, they are becoming a friend of the museum, and they are supplying the Uncrustables for all of the campers in our summer camp. So that is, I think, a big win. And those kids are going to love it.
It's lovely. That's great.
Isn't that fun? I
Yeah.
just love it. I feel like synergy, right?
That's the least they could do.
Exactly. I just feel like it's so perfect. There's something really poetic about it, right? And then in our marketing department, the summer 22 newsletter is going to be coming out pretty soon. So please look forward to seeing that in your mailboxes. If anybody doesn't get that, please let me know. I'll make sure that you get on our mailing list, that you get that newsletter. It really is a great composite of everything that the museum does. And so I feel like it's kind of it's a marketing piece. It's a booster piece. It's how you figure out how to sign up for classes and summer camps and everything else, but it's a beautiful publication. And so I want to make sure that all of you are able to get your hands on it and then talk to other people about it too. And then promotion for the Washi Transform continues. We've got some underwriting spots in Colorado Public Radio, and Joan did, what is today? Oh, I think it was today that Joan actually did an interview with the curator of the exhibition, Mayor MacArthur, on 9 News. And I think it played this morning at 11 o'clock. So we'll be able to get a copy of that video. But we had been talking with Mayor to see if we could get her to Longmont to be able to be a speaker. She's had some health issues, so she wasn't able to get out here. But the one thing that we were able to pull off is that she appeared with Joan on 9 News to be able to talk to all of Colorado about the exhibition. And so that just played this morning. So we'll send you that link as soon as we get it. Any questions or thoughts or comments?
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do we need to RSVP or register to attend the closing reception for Washi?
I'm going to throw that to Joanne. Do you know the answer to that?
I don't believe you have to RSVP. Just show up.
Okay.
Show up.
Great.
Tommy, your hand is up.
Yeah, I had a question. It's not an urgent thing or kind of related to something you brought up when you mentioned the Japanese community earlier in your report. And I'm just curious of who the city liaison is. I know there is, according to their website, there's a city liaison with the Japanese community and the sister city. And the reason I asked that, we had a candidate of Asian background that for another organization that I belonged to when we were trying to recruit him and his family. And he was very interested in talking to, since he was aware through his research of our Japanese sister city, and that there was, he even looked on the website of the city regarding the liaison. And it said to both he and I separately and unknowingly sent an email to the address at the city that said to get more information, but neither of us ever heard back. So I'm just wondering if this ever comes up again, if anybody knows who that liaison is with the city. The candidate went elsewhere, so I didn't follow up any further on that. But it was a little bit of a disappointment that I never heard back from anybody.
Right. Eric, do you know?
It was, and I've been out of this loop for a while, but it was the city's public information officer, Rigo Leal. He was a liaison with sister cities for many years. He now only works part-time, so So that may be why he's less responsive, but I think if you contact the city manager's office,
Sure.
they could direct you to the right.
Yeah, I would have been more persistent with it other than the situation was starting to fizzle a little bit. So I just didn't pursue it. But if it ever comes up again, I appreciate that. And I'll try to pursue it a little further with the city manager's office. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bruce.
Yeah, what's happening with your reporting line after Karen Rooney has retired?
Oh, I totally should have put that in report. Thank you for bringing that up, Bruce. So what has happened is that the museum, and the library are both reporting to the director of recreation, Jeff Friesner. And that is an interim step. The rest of community services is reporting to Michelle Waite in the senior center. And so right now, there are 2 interim positions that are leaders in community service. So it's Jeff in rec and Michelle in the senior center. Sometime soon, I don't know exactly when, but sometime soon, the city manager will give us more information about what kind of a reorganization will look like. And I don't have any information about that at this point, but I do think that what he's doing is looking at sort of the organization across the city, because Karen retired, and I can't remember his name. Eric or Joanne, can you help? Dale.
Dale Rademacher.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dale Rademacher retired. The head of affordable housing retired. There's been a lot of changes that have happened. And so I think that what the city manager is doing is sort of taking the whole picture and trying to understand where we might have some other realignments, some other affinities that happen, and then is going to have a more comprehensive.
Are they going to fill any of these positions, or are they just going to reorganize?
Yeah, I honestly don't know the answer, but my gut tells me that there'll be at least one sort of leadership position that they'll need to hire for. But partly the conversation has been that, Karen Roney was in the position for 32 years, and the department grew and grew and grew in those 32 years. And Karen worked like a dog. And, she worked weekends and evenings and at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it probably did not make a lot of sense to simply pull somebody and replace her. That just wasn't a reasonable assumption that somebody would be able to do that. And so somehow or another in this reorganization, I think that there'll just be some balances that are thrown into the conversation.
All right. Well, let's hope they don't leave you under the recreation.
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
Otherwise,
I think
they'll have you doing jumping jacks every morning.
Well, we probably could do that anyway. That might help, but no, I don't think that that's the path that's going to happen. I think it really was an interim step until the city manager was able to kind of think about this more holistically. Yeah. Thank you for asking that. I totally spaced putting it on the report, so I appreciate you bringing that up. Any other questions about what's happening at the museum, what's happening at the city? All right, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Cook.
All righty. Haven't been called Mr. Cook in a long time. All right, well, let's move on.
Respect. Yeah.
Appreciate it. I used to, anyway, sorry. Let's move on to unfinished business. We have 2 items here, in-person or virtual meeting, museum advisory board meetings. I'm guessing we're going to talk about how we want to do this going forward, eh? that gets
Yes,
the question for
please.
Kim and Joanne. How do we all feel about that? Yes.
I'm fine with in-person meetings if people want to go that direction.
I personally prefer Zoom stuff. I have 2 small children, and so we're still pretty locked down over here. But I totally understand folks wanting to, meet in person and do all that. Does anyone have any other thoughts or opinions on it? Preferences?
Well, I'm certainly willing for in-person meetings, but I'm taking some medication that has kind of tanked my immune system. So if you all wouldn't be put off by the fact that I might be wearing a mask, I wouldn't ask anyone else to. But when I get in a group of more than 8 or so, I've been told I should mask up. So if that won't put anybody off, and please, I don't want anybody to feel they have to do anything. But that's just a little personal thing I'm facing, so I don't want to put it on everybody else.
Well, it's important for us to be able to, talk about our needs here when it comes to this. So.
Tom, your hand is up too.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this for a while too, and I think we miss a part of being a board member when we're not together in person. But I think the last however long I've been on the board, we've had Zoom meetings, except for one time at the warehouse. But I think I remember, Kim, you telling us that there could not be a hybrid. Is that correct? Or our city council liaison might have said that. It's either one way or the other.
That's my understanding, but I do think that my understanding is that there have been conversations since I last said that. Like, I think that some people are doing hybrid meetings, and so
some organizations are in the area.
So I know for our city council meetings, going hybrid was not an option. It would have just been too challenging. I know we tried to do a section where we were back in person and we had public invited to be heard calling in. We were in the council chambers, and that was challenging, that component. But I think, so like I'm on the board for the NGLA, the Neighborhood Groups Leadership Alliance, and they've opted to continue all virtual. And I think the challenge was trying to figure out how they could do online. So I think, for schools, I'm a school teacher, we've done hybrid throughout, and that's a nightmare. It was a nightmare. We had trying to teach 8-year-olds and having to do, it's doable. We had the technology, and I think, we would be able to do it, but it would not better our circumstance if we had half the board in person, half the board online, because the folks who are listening online would be missing a piece. So I think what I have heard is that people are kind of leaning towards either all in person or all virtual.
It is challenging. I think the technology isn't ideal for everybody feeling like they can be equally a part of the conversation. That's what it boils down to.
Yes.
But we are, just as an FYI, again, as part of the COVID relief dollars that we've received, we are outfitting both the Kaiser C room and our conference room with a lot better technology that will be able to manage this a little bit better. Like the microphones are better and the cameras are better, you know. So that might be an option that once we get that additional equipment, that will help with a hybrid meeting. But I agree with Susie. It's not that it's a mandate. It's just not ideal.
I'm just thinking out loud right now.
Yeah.
What if, all right, say we keep it at, hypothetically, option 1, we keep it at Zoom for those that prefer to work remotely, but those of us that would like to have some camaraderie as board members and more direct conversation sometimes. I mean, we bring our laptops to a meeting room at the library or at the museum, and we sit there like we were at home watching, participating in the board meeting for those of us that want to be together. And those that want to be home are zooming in just like we are across the table from each other. I know there's like meeting rules that after you get so many, maybe, I don't know, more than 3 board members together or something, it's like a public meeting or something like that. But I don't know if that would give us, those that want the boardsmanship community to develop, if that's something that would be even potential. We just sit around the table as if we were at home, those of us that want to be together.
Yeah.
And those of us that want to be, for whatever reasons, good reasons, be at home or are in our offices, we'd be participating the same way. Everybody would still be on Zoom.
Or we could do 1 month in person, 1 month Zoom. We could alternate. That might be another way that would that might work. To build in some flexibility.
If I can jump in here, this is a question for city employees. Doesn't the city have a meeting room outfitted with like the what is it, the owl camera? It's really designed for hybrid meetings like this. We use it with LCJP.
What's LCJP?
Longmont Community Justice Partnership.
I see.
It's affiliated with the city.
I don't know of anybody who has the owl. We've been talking about buying one for the museum.
Let me reach out to other folks and see if that room actually exists.
Okay.
Under exists with the city. It may actually be part of the police department now that I think about it. But so it kind of sounds like folks are wanting to get together and meet in person. Is that?
Well, there's only 2 of us, 2 or 3 of us that have spoken to the issue.
Yeah, those are the voices I'm hearing.
Yeah, maybe others can chime in a little bit. How they feel.
I'm okay either way. But if it's in person, probably if everyone would be willing to wear masks, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, like I'd be double plus masked if we met in person.
I think one concern I have is I think for safety reasons, I think masking if we met makes sense. I had a lot harder time hearing people when we met and we were all masked. I actually felt like it was a bigger deterrent to kind of connecting than it is over Zoom, where I feel like I can hear every person participating. And so I guess for me personally, if we're not at a place where we can meet safely and at least like Kim feels comfortable being unmasked and Eric feels comfortable, for me it was a lot harder to kind of digest the reports when everyone was masked.
To be fair, I will point out that we met at the Museum Collections Center, and the HVAC system is very, very loud out there. So I would say that that was kind of a specific aberrant condition, that's not normal. In one of our meeting rooms at the museum, we wouldn't necessarily have, because I do think you were absolutely right. Like, we were screaming through our masks, trying to hear each other out there.
I don't have any particularly strong feelings one way or the other. It's mildly convenient to be at home on Zoom because I get to leave work early and let my dogs out. But it is nice to see people in person and have a personal connection as well. So I don't I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other, and I'm fine with what the group decides.
Well, it sounds like we're all over the map, so. You know, so we could just play it by ear, you know, see what happens. I mean, it doesn't have to be decided now.
We just need to make a decision about what we're going to do for the next meeting. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, I hope I didn't.
It's all your fault, Dale.
It's all my fault. No, I said I have no problem with in-person meetings, but I'm going to be masked, and I don't want anyone else to feel that they have to be too. I mean, I can go either way. I certainly understand Tom's point about actually being able to talk to, I mean, you know, see people and talk to them and connect with the group. Although I think we've done a pretty good job over the months of connecting with each other and saying what we want to say. So please don't I wish I hadn't spoken up. I'm sorry.
I mean, Dale, I'm in the same boat as you, so don't worry about it. Just not quite, I don't have immune issues, but I need to be super careful for the baby and stuff.
Go ahead.
What about, this is mainly to Kim. I mean, what if we just, I'm just thinking out loud again, we stay at Zoom for a while longer, but maybe the museum could host a quarterly, I don't know what, something where the board members could get or is that going to be considered a meeting?
If we have more, yeah, you're right. It would be considered a meeting.
But I mean, not a meeting, not a meeting agenda, but just, you know, like a
party.
Well, yeah, something like that. Yeah, just to get together, so we, you know. But I don't know if that's a possibility. We might have to let it be known, you know, publicly that the board, the museum board, is getting together in conference room, whatever, for a social hour or something. But
yeah,
you know, we really wouldn't maybe just be discussing any business or anything. It's just talking to each other. And
yeah,
I don't know, maybe that would help build a rapport more so between the boards meeting. Not that we don't have it, but we've been kind of handicapped a little bit for the last 2 years with the board because we haven't met in person. But that's just if there was some way to get together on a quarterly basis or twice a year or something.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. Ultimately, I do feel like we've done a really, really good job of getting to know each other and to, you know, we all know that we can count on Bruce to say some snarky things, you know, so. But I do think that there's just no replacement for being in person. So I don't know that I've got an answer for you right now. So maybe I'll chat more with Joanne and Eric and see if we can think of some creative ways to do this. And maybe it does boil down to a hybrid meeting. And we just need to know that it's not going to be ideal, that, you know, there are challenges with a hybrid meeting. So we'll talk more about it offline and maybe bring some recommendations back at the next meeting, if that would be okay. Okay.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Okay. So do we want to make a decision for the next meeting though?
Yeah, let's solidify that. My thought is keep it on Zoom for now. There is a surge kind of happening, and reconsider for the June meeting in person. Who knows, maybe we can have it in the courtyard.
Yeah. Be great.
That's not a bad idea during the
That's not a bad idea at all.
during the warm months. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Tom,
we are.
Tom,
Okay, Tom.
Tom's got one more.
I just wondered, do we need does somebody need to make a motion? I'd be glad to, or we'll just do it more casually as far as, but I'd be glad to make the motion if you need that, Kim. I don't know.
I'm going to ask Joanne to.
That we meet.
You know, go ahead.
Zoom.
Go ahead and throw that motion out.
Great.
Well, I make the motion that our chair suggested for next meeting to meet on Zoom again until we come up with a better solution.
I second that.
Great. Let's all in favor then. Raise your hands. Okay. Get my chair. That's unanimous. We're going to meet in Zoom next, or continue meeting in Zoom for next month, and then reconsider meeting in person in June. Yes.
And I'm sure by that time, Kim and Joanne and Eric will have the ideal solution.
We'll have it all figured out.
Susie's got
Susie's, yeah, Susie's.
Yes. So this is not, I just want to make a quick announcement before we end. Tomorrow night, and it's not museum related, but it is close to the museum at the Innovation Center. The City Council is having a joint meeting with the school board. So if anyone is interested in attending, so I've learned that this is actually the first time that we will be doing that, which was interesting because we've had joint meetings with our county commissioners, our state legislators, but and judges, and we've have yet to have a joint meeting with our school board. So we'll be talking about housing, ballot initiatives. I know there's talk of a library district, a preschool district. So all these issues that can have some impact or implications for the museum. So if anyone is interested in attending, it's tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at the Innovation Center. And it is open to the public.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure.
We do have one more item under unfinished business, the nominating committee to interview board applicants.
Well, Kelly and I have not had a chance to really speak about this, but we know we're supposed to be doing it, don't we?
We do.
And
great.
We will talk or email or both or whatever in the next week or so, because maybe you all can tell me, Susie can tell me when, or Joanne probably, when are applications, when does it close? When are they?
Right. Right, that was kind of why it's on the agenda, just to remind everyone that Dale and Callie are our nominating committee, and application deadline, that's the 25th, that's a Monday. So they must be into the city clerk's office by then. And so then you'll conduct your interviews during the month of May. Your recommendations will be forwarded to the city clerk's office the first week of June. And then council does their interviews, I think, Susie, either June 11th or June 18th, and those are Saturdays for council interviews. And then council appoints either June 21st or June 28th. And then our new folks or reappointed folks would, our July 20th meeting would be their first meeting. So that's kind of just as a reminder, and we'll get with Callie and Dale offline to get you the applications and the finalized questions.
But for some reason, I understood from our discussion last month, and maybe Susie can straighten me out here, that this was almost to take the place of council interviews. So are we now having 2 sets of interviews for applicants, or is that?
Susie, stop me if I'm wrong. This does, it really is just to inform council, but council will still do a short interview.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm double checking my email because I don't want to say, maybe I understood it wrong, but yeah, I'm gonna double check to make sure. But I don't want to throw, because I feel like if I say an assumption or an understanding that I thought, then it sticks in people's heads. So I'm looking right.
Right. So I have it in writing from the city clerk's office, and they did include the dates for council interviews.
Okay.
Those 2 Saturdays. So I'm fairly certain council will more have an abbreviated interview.
Yeah.
With your recommendations in mind.
Yes. Because I think our goal was not to override what the board decides, but it's just kind of, we are putting the final seal to make it official. Because I think according to our charter, and this is my understanding, is according to our charter, we have to be the deciding body. Unless, we decide to update the charter, then that's something that goes back to the vote of the people. So in kind of a way to keep in line with what our charter says, we still have to have that interview component and put that final seal, but our intent is not to override what the board decides.
Okay, well, Kelly and I will get together by email or whatever and decide. We understand these are not going to be long interviews for Linda and Catherine and any other applicants. We're thinking, what, 15 minutes at the most.
And hot lights.
And, and I was thinking at the museum, but I haven't talked with anyone else. So, and we'll have to we'll get in touch with the applicants and pick a time that's good for them, but.
Yeah, we'll make sure you've got a meeting space, Dale. So Kim and I will be in contact and make sure you're set up. Thank you.
Can I just add real quickly too? I don't know that we've heard from many people on the interview questions. So if I can ask all of you to just read through those and see if you have any comments or additions or edits to that. We'd love to hear from you. We did, if I remember correctly, and it's been so long, I think that we were the ones that originally provided those. So they may be fine, but if we could get some feedback on those interview questions, then that would be great as well.
I thought they were very good.
Right. And thank you to Katie. Katie did give me a couple suggestions and I will incorporate those.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Are we good with the nominating committee stuff? talk? I think so. All right. Do we have any new business or board comments? If not,
I have
we
one
can-
thing.
All
Sorry,
right. No
but
problem.
I have a little child here who I'm having a little trouble with. Can you please go find your dad?
Can I go in?
No, I want you to go find your dad. Thank you. Sorry about that. There was one thing from our last meeting that I wanted to circle back on, and I can't recall who might have had this question, so forgive me. But the issue of age for our art and civ classes, Kelly, was that you? You asked about that?
It was Katie.
What we'd said, I circled back with our education department, and what they said is that it's considered an adult class, and so that typically is something like 18 and above, but they would consider, you know, something around 16 if they got a question. Certainly if they are going to the bar to get a drink, they're going to get carded. That we have tips trained bartenders and they will not be served alcohol. So that's not a question at hand. But there's sort of a loose interpretation of what adult program is. And so I think the youngest that we would really consider would be about 16, but that's kind of a non-formal policy, if you will.
Great. Thanks, Kim. Well, do we, I guess we can adjourn this meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Thanks, Tom. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thanks, Katie. It is, actually, we all have to vote now. So all in favor, please raise your hand. I will remember how this works at some point. Thanks, folks. And it is 5:49 and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks. Hey, Sheila.
Yes,
My apologies. I should have pointed out that you were also a guest, and I'm sorry.
that's quite all right. And you're still recording.
And I'm still recording. But anyhow, so my apologies.
That's not a problem. And I will have a couple of comments about Zoom and open meetings that I will send on to you.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, so I'll end our recording now. Let's see. Oh, no, it doesn't want to end. Let's see what else I can do here.